I think the Eight of Cups is one of the most misread cards in the tarot. It is usually read as walking away, as leaving, as finally letting go of something that was not working. Now, I don't think that reading is wrong, but it is not the whole card for me. The Eight of Cups is not really about leaving. It is about the recognition that has to happen before leaving is even possible. And in this video, I want to show you what that recognition actually is, psychologically and in the old folklore that I believe the card is rooted in. Because once you see it, you will never read this card the same way again. Let me start with what most people already know about this card, because the standard reading is real and we have to start there. So the image is this: a figure in a red cloak walking away from the viewer. 8 cups stacked neatly in the foreground, arranged carefully, almost reverently. Behind the figure, mountains, above a moon that is both waning and partly eclipsed. A river running across the middle distance, and the figure has a staff, and they're heading uphill into rough country alone. The standard reading is more or less this. The cups represent something the figure has built, a relationship, a career, a stage of life, a version of themselves. There are 8 of them. They are arranged with care. Whatever this is, the figure invested in it for a long time. And the figure is leaving it. Not in anger, not in crisis. The figure is calm. The leaving is deliberate. They have realised somehow that what they have built is not what they need. And they are walking away from it to find what is. Walking away, letting go, moving on. That is the standard reading, and it is true. But here is what the standard reading misses. Look at the card again. The figure is not running. Look at the posture, the pace, the staff. This is not someone fleeing. This is someone walking deliberately into terrain that is harder than where they were. And the cups behind them, 8 of them, are not being thrown over. They are not being smashed. They are standing, still arranged. The figure has left them as they were. And this is the detail that I think matters, because the figure is not rejecting what they built. They are simply leaving it standing still while they go in search of what it could not give them. This is what the standard reading misses. The 8 of Cups is not the card of departure, it's the card of recognition. Specifically, the recognition that what you have built, even when it is good, even when it looks complete from the outside, has a gap in it that no amount of staying and rearranging will fill. So if you notice the cups again, 8 of them stacked carefully, but look at the arrangement. There is a gap. The arrangement is incomplete. A 9th cup would complete the pattern, but it's not there. The figure has built 8. The 9th, the one that would make the structure whole, is missing. And the figure has finally seen the gap. That is the moment the card is depicting, not the leaving, the seeing. The leaving is the consequence of the recognition. The recognition is the card itself. And this matters because most people who pull this card think the card is telling them to do something, to leave the job, to end the relationship, to get out. It usually isn't. It is telling them to look properly, honestly at what they have built and to see what is missing from it. The action comes later, the seeing comes first. Now, I want to take you somewhere the standard tarot books don't usually go, because the Eight of Cups is, in its symbolism, an old card. The water, the moon, the figure leaving the known world for unknown country. These are images that show up in folklore long before they show up in tarot, and in the old Scottish stories there is one tale that maps onto this card almost exactly. The story of the selkie wife. If you don't know it, the story goes like this. A man is walking along a Scottish beach at dusk. He sees a group of women on the sand. They are dancing. Their sealskins are folded behind them on the rocks. He takes one of the skins. He hides it. Come morning, the women slip back into their skins and return to the sea. All except one, the woman whose skin is missing. She follows the man home because she has no other choice. She lives with him for years. They have children. From the outside, she's a good wife. She tends the house. She feeds the children. She does not complain. She does what is expected. She looks, to anyone watching, completely fine. Completely fine on the outside, quietly not herself on the inside. And then one day the children are playing, and one of them finds something in the locked chest, a folded skin. The child does not know what it is. The child brings it to their mother. And the mother takes it in her hands and she walks down to the sea. She does not look back. Now, there is a popular reading of this story that goes something like this. The selkie wife represents the wild, authentic self. The skin is her true nature. Returning to the sea is reclaiming her power, becoming who she really is. And that reading is beautiful, and I think it is broadly right. But I would like to add something to it that I think is closer to what the story is actually doing. The selkie does not return to the sea because she has finally figured out what she wants. She returns to the sea because she has finally been given back what was taken from her. There is a difference. The first is a decision. The second is a recognition. The skin was always hers. She did not choose between two lives. She simply remembered which one was real. She walked into the marriage because someone took her skin. She walked out of it because she got it back. The marriage was never the life. The marriage was the consequence of a theft. And this is where the selkie story and the Eight of Cups become the same story. Because the figure on the card has not built a life she chose. She has built a life she was given. By circumstance, by expectation, by the version of herself she was at the time. And one day, like the selkie, she sees something, a gap, a missing cup, a skin she didn't know was hidden. And the leaving when it comes is not a rejection. It is the moment she remembers which life was actually hers. Now I have to tell you the harder part, because if I leave you with what I have just said, the video only does half its job. There's a version of the Eight of Cups that is the soul call, the figure recognising the gap, the selkie remembering the sea, the genuine signal that the life is currently constructed cannot hold who you're becoming. And there is a version that is the ego fleeing from accountability. These two things can feel almost identical from the inside. That is what makes this card so difficult to read honestly. The ego flees when a decision has come due that the ego does not want to make. when a conversation needs to happen that the ego does not want to have, when something has to be felt that the ego has been avoiding for years. In those moments, the imagery of the Eight of Cups can be deeply seductive because it offers a story where leaving is noble. We are walking into the mountains as the spiritually mature choice. The figure has done the inner work and is now wisely moving on. Sometimes that is exactly what is happening, and sometimes the figure is not walking into the mountains because the mountains are calling. The figure is walking into the mountains because the conversation downstairs is unbearable. The selkie returns to the sea because the sea is her true element. She does not return to the sea because the marriage got difficult. And that's the distinction. So how do you tell which one you're in when this card shows up for you? Here are the shapes that I've come to recognise, not as rules, but as patterns. The soul's call tends to feel quiet, persistent. It doesn't get louder when avoided, it gets deeper. It tends to point towards something, not just away from something. It is not in a hurry. It does not require anyone else to be wrong for it to be right. And it coexists with grief. There is real loss in what it asks you to leave, and the call does not pretend otherwise. The ego's flight tends to feel urgent. It gets louder when avoided. It is almost always pointing away from something specific, a particular conversation, a particular truth, a person whose disappointment is unbearable. It tends to require someone else to be at fault, and it does not coexist easily with grief. It replaces grief with blame or with a fantasy of relief that does not include any feeling at all. The soul says, this life cannot hold who I am becoming. The ego says, I cannot bear this feeling and I will do anything to make it stop. Both of these deserve attention. The ego's flight is also information. It is telling you that something has become unbearable, and that is not nothing. But the ego's flight does not necessarily mean the answer is to leave. Sometimes it means the answer is to stay with the feeling long enough for it to change shape. And when the Eight of Cups appears in a reading, the work is not to immediately act on it. The work is to figure out which one of those two voices is doing the calling. If the Eight of Cups has been showing up for you in your readings, in your life, in the quiet daydreams you haven't been telling anyone about, here are 3 questions to sit with, not to answer quickly, to carry for a few days to see what surfaces. First, what is the gap I have been refusing to see? The card is not first about leaving, it is about recognition. Before anything else, the card is asking you to name what is missing from the life you have built. Not what is wrong with it, what is missing from it. Those are different questions, and the second one is harder. Second, if I imagine actually leaving, actually doing it, does the call hold up or does it evaporate? This is the test the soul call passes and the ego flight tends to fail. Imagine yourself 2 months into the new life, the same body, the same history, the same self. Does it still feel right? Or does the relief evaporate the moment you actually picture inhabiting it? A genuine soul call survives imagination, the ego flight tends not to. And third, what is the conversation I would have to have, or the feeling I would have to feel if I were not going anywhere? This is the one that does the most work, because often the fantasy of leaving is functioning as the postponement of something specific. A truth you haven't said out loud, a decision that has been pending for months, a grief you haven't let yourself feel. If the only available life were the one you are already in, if leaving were genuinely off the table, what is the thing you would have to face? That is usually the thing the card is pointing at, whether or not you eventually leave. If this video landed for you, if something in it recognised something in you, I want to leave you with two things. I made a free tarot spread called the Threshold Spread. 5 cards, each position rooted in Scottish folklore. It's designed for women sitting with exactly the kind of question the Eight of Cups asks. It is on my website and the link is in the description. And if you would like more of this kind of work, folklore-rooted tarot, psychological honesty, shadow work that doesn't flinch, please subscribe to this channel. There is more coming. Thank you so much for watching. She does not need to leave the cups. She just needs to see the gap. Everything else follows from that.